very controversial. Snack before you. Yeah.
No, round down.
Page number.
Hey, 100,000, maybe.
Okay, I have 5 p.m. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is regular public meeting, May 3rd. Please join us for the invocation and the pledge.
Be at church in a minute.
Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time we can come together and do our county's business. We ask you to just be present with us tonight. Give us wisdom, give us guidance. Just allow us to have that servant's heart and make the decisions that's best for our community. Ask you to protect those who watch over us, our first responders and our military, and keep them safe as they do their job. In all things, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you would like to participate in our meeting, we have a citizens to be heard at the beginning and another one at the end. You can participate in either one of those, and you can also speak on each individual agenda item. Please fill out a speaker card with Miss Jessica on each item that you would like to speak, and give us your name and address when you come up for the podium. We do have folks watching from home, and so if you'll speak clearly into that microphone, they'll be able to hear very well also.
Let's record the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, we do have one add-on item. It's a no-cost time extension for the Restore Act retrofit at Otter Creek, and we suggest that get added on to consent.
Very good.
I'll move.
All right, do we have a second? Second. Anything additional? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, any citizens to be heard? None for the first one. Awards and presentation.
Here we go.
We will hear from James Moore and Company on the FY 19-20 financial audit report. Welcome, sir.
All right, thank you. This is the most anticipation I think I've ever sensed for the
Excitement.
So good evening, Zach Shalfield, partner of James Moore and Company. I am joined by Lynn Durrett, who is the manager working on the audit. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to work with the county. This was, of course, our first year working with you all. I guess we did the firm did the Wakulla County audit many, many years ago, but the first time of kind of the current iteration of the firm that's really kind of grown our government practice prior to reconvening to work with you all. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation to hit the highlights of the audit. First and foremost, we are in draft form. There's a couple odds and ends still being wrapped up to finalize the reports. That should definitely happen this month, probably in the next week or two. But we did want to stick with this presentation date because, again, everything we'll talk about, I don't expect any substantive changes to anything that we'll go over. If there were any such changes, we would make sure that that clearly was communicated to the board. I would like to also thank Greg and his team, Suzanne, and all of the other constitutional officers for all of their help through the process. There's always a certain amount of growing pains, switching auditors, and probably for staff just going through the audit in general. We really try to make it as seamless yet thorough of a process as possible. So there are 5 reports that we issue in these financial statements, which are management's financial statements. The first report is the audit report itself. We did issue an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that we can issue that your financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. The second report that we issued is we performed a federal and a state single audit. Effectively, when the county spends more than certain amounts of grant dollars, we have to go in and perform a mini compliance audit. So we have no findings to report relative to those grants that we were required to look at. With regard to internal control and compliance, we perform the audit as well in accordance with government auditing standards, which requires us to report on any internal control or compliance matters related to financial reporting, grants, budget, debt, and so forth. We have just one comment to report on the board side. This related to prior period adjustments. Effectively, some balances in the prior year where the amounts, the cutoff in terms of what went in the financial statements. We had a few corrections to some of those beginning balances. When there's that case where there are adjustments, we have to report that. But again, there was nothing with regard to improperly spent funds or anything like that. It was purely just the year-end accounting adjustments and truing up the starting point to present the current year financial statements. And we also are required to report on a series of other items mostly related to financial condition by the state. We had no modifications there. Generally, the state wants to know if there's negative financial trends or otherwise. That was not the case. As we get to, the county is in a strong financial position. And then lastly, we did note the county to be in compliance with state statutes over investment policy and activity, as well as E911 statutes. So as I mentioned, we do issue multiple audits. We work with other constitutional officers, and as in prior years, there's 6 audits that get issued, 1 for each constitutional, and then the county as a whole. So we put a little tabulation here of findings across those audits. As you see, there's a number of comments related to the property appraiser. Those generally related to the carryover of prior year issues in terms of looking at fiscal year 2020 as a whole. We also had a few comments and recommendations on the tax collector side. Really the focus here is, again, other than those carryover issues on the property appraiser side, we had no issues with regard to any dollars not being spent properly. It was all really procedure and process oriented to help tighten up some of the controls, continuing the property appraiser as well as with the tax collector. So we want to highlight that, given some of the past circumstances. So to get into the numbers, first we've got a trend looking at the 3-year history of your general fund, which of course is the primary operating fund of the county. And what we'll highlight here is looking at your total fund balance. Of course, there's a pretty substantial increase from about $5 million in prior years to $10.5 million this year. The bulk of that relates to, of course, there was the CARES Act money that ran through a separate fund. Much of that was transferred into the general fund. So like many other governments, there has been a net inflow for many related to that funding last year. And of course, looking forward, ARPA, the next new big thing that everyone's still waiting on what the rules will be as far as how to spend that money. But we'll see lots of additional grant activity next year as well. So to put that fund balance into perspective, what we look at is your assigned and your unassigned fund balance, which really represent your unrestricted reserves. And we compare that relative to what your budget is in terms of what you spent in the fiscal year. And look at that as a percentage. You're about 34%, about doubled last year's of 16%. Again, largely due to that CARES Act money that came in this year. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends a bare minimum of 2 months in reserves. It really says if you're coastal, that it should be more like 3 months. So you guys are above that minimum recommendation, and again, in a pretty strong position with regard to your general fund reserves. With regard to the other funds, your other governmental funds, generally where you put your restricted dollars, again, for additional accountability and transparency, those dollars flow through their own funds rather than in the general fund. There was about $10 million of fund balance in those funds. Again, majority of that is restricted based on the underlying rules for those other revenue sources. And as part of that, we do look to see that the expenses from those funds were made in accordance with the rules. We came across no issues on that front. And then there's also no funds from a financial standpoint that have a deficit fund balance or anything that might have to be subsidized by the general fund in the future, that type of thing. So all of those funds looking good as well. With regard to your business type funds, here we look at a trend of your unrestricted net position. Fluctuations up and down are pretty common. We look for more of any sustained trends, good or bad. Overall, those funds performing well and no issues of significance to report there. And on the grant side, I did mention you did get about $6 million in the COVID-19 funding from the CARES Act last year. And then lastly, as you all have probably seen and talked about in prior years, the county is required to report what's called the net pension liability on your financial statements. This number is the theoretical share from the Florida retirement system. But because it is to the tune of about a $33 million number, I find it always important to highlight that fact that it's just a theoretical number. You're not going to have to write a check for $33 million, but it's for, again, to comply with governmental accounting standards. The ongoing obligation of the county with regard to FRS is that everyone makes the required monthly contributions to the plan based on payroll. We look at that. That has been done. But again, for the record, I do like to acknowledge that, yes, this liability is reported, but it's purely a theoretical amount to comply with accounting standards, not something that would have to actually be a check written for or anything of that nature. So with that, those are the highlights. Again, we hope to have the final audit wrapped up in the coming weeks, and I'd be more than glad to answer any questions.
Excellent. Questions, comments?
So thorough, I don't even have any questions.
What was the BOCC significant finding?
That related to, it was classified as a significant deficiency with the levels of comments. There was material weakness, which is kind of pervasive, something critical that needs to be addressed, normally with regard to internal controls. This was classified as a significant deficiency, and what it was is there were various items where the balances had to be adjusted in terms of looking at the prior year cutoff. So for instance, I think there were a couple of areas where there were on some monthly revenues that you guys received from the state. It's a 2-month lag, and I think it was only recorded with a 1-month lag in the prior year. So it was just getting those in the right fiscal year. There were a couple items of that nature.
Was that page 144?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. That explains all that?
Yep.
So, I don't think we've ever, did we have that last year? I don't recall that last year.
I don't think we've had any deficiencies.
New auditor?
So effectively, and this is a one-time item to basically correct, from an accounting theory, was to correct an error in the prior year financial statements in terms of the cutoff of those revenues and how many months lag time there was.
It's all revenue, not expenditures in the wrong. Is this like TDC? We get TDC funds 2 months in.
Exactly. Same concept, yes. Yeah, so there was, that side, there were also some prior year restatements related to the OPEB liability. That's probably, OPEB is more in depth than we want to probably get into, but that's basically a non-cash actuarial determined liability, kind of like your pension liability. And we did have a few areas where certain items from that valuation were not booked properly in the prior year. So there was basically, again, just truing that up from a financial reporting standpoint.
Is that in here also?
It's part of that comment on 144. Yep. Yeah, those multiple adjustments are rolled into that one comment for reporting purposes, and we have every expectation that that will be resolved next year.
And, last year we had some issues with our audit and our, some of our departments. Did y'all do enough to find any problems that might exist today?
So we found no additional issues in terms of, no new items of dollars not being spent properly, anything like that. We did come across certain areas where, from a control standpoint, that in the property appraiser's office, helped work through some, hey, here's ideas of how to make sure that those are in a good spot going forward. There were those couple comments on the tax collector's office as well, but along those same lines, there were no issues or anything like that in terms of what actually took place, but we did find opportunities to further strengthen the controls to reduce the risk that anything could happen in the future.
And you're going to check next year if those were implemented?
Yes, sir.
Any staff disagreement in the category where it should be, or? Deal.
No, David did a really good job of walking through our procedures on cash management, et cetera, and we welcome that. And but we're good.
Yeah. Additional comments, questions?
Thank you.
Anyone from the public like to say anything? All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you all.
Move consent. All right. Do we have a second for consent? Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. We did not pull any consent items. We'll go into general business, item number 7.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this agenda item requests board direction relating to the imposition of a voluntary assessment for communication improvements within the Marita Blanca subdivision.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any citizens? Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 8, general business.
Item number 8, this agenda item requests board approval of a resolution renaming the Panacea Women's Club to the Panacea Community Center.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Good job, Cody. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. No public hearings. We'll go into planning and zoning, item number 9.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to close and abandon a portion of Dilworth Drive within the Allens Addition subdivision in Panacea.
Motion to approve. Have a motion, we need a second. Second. Citizens? And this is the same item that came last time.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Just takes action on it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. No scheduled commissioner agenda items. County attorney. County administrator.
Yes, while we're talking about the Panacea Community Center now, thank you for that. Cody and his crew have been doing quite the work down there. We've got the new playground in, waiting on a picnic pavilion, as well as we got the bids back for the interior work that'll be done this summer, and that'll be before you guys, hopefully in the next meeting. That actually came in within budget, which was really good. So that project will be hopefully wrapping it up this summer. June 1st is May 31st is the last day, and this is to the public, the last day for people to apply for the hardship exemption for solid waste and fire. So right now, I think we're currently sitting at about 79, is that right? And by the end of the year, we should be about 115, 120, something like that. So you need to, if you know anybody that has applied, they need to go ahead and make that application. And like I say, it says June 1st it closes, May 31st is your last day. Okay. We have a budget workshop on the 3rd, at 3 o'clock on the next meeting, so make sure you're there. We got a lot of very important issues we're going to talk about, and
Hard issues.
This one's nothing going to be easy on it.
We need to be here for that.
And let's see, what else we got? Also, there's an update on the sewer, and I'm trying to find it here from my emails here. The update on our sewer program, to where we have spent money with the DEP gave us for the septic rebatement program to put new drain fills in. There has been, regarding the septic program, I've submitted 6 disbursements for $42,000 to individuals. And final construction, we have still about $535,000 remaining in the program.
Anybody applied for the Connect to Sewer thing?
As of right now, no. No, sir. And let's see, going on, they had...
Get it done in the amount that we're
That's right.
authorizing. That hasn't been a problem.
Also, one of the other updates was that they have 75 applications at various levels of work performance. Some are waiting on construction permit approval, others are waiting for the soil results. 6 applicants on the septic tank upgrade wait list. If applicants in the program decide to drop out, I can swap them out anyway.
Can we spend the money that was supposed to be used to hook people up the sewer over to the septic tank?
Yes, when we get closer, we'll transfer that money.
Because I don't think any of that will be spent.
Yeah, DEP's okay with that, and we already told them.
So let me ask you something. So the people that are like in Wakulla Gardens, if we're going to do the second phase of sewer, and are we still going to...
We won't do those.
We won't do those, okay? Because it don't make no sense if we're going to spend that money.
That's right.
Turn around and run sewer,
So they get kicked out.
Okay.
We don't even make new construction houses put up, they can put a regular septic tank.
That's right.
Because they're going to be on sewer soon.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure we
Yeah.
will, like, do it in next year, be a waste of money, okay?
And that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Citizens be heard. None tonight. Discussion items. Chuck, you want to start us off? Don't you and Ralph getting a long talk now, Chuck? Hey, I got a lot of real positive feedback on both sides for that conversation at the last minute. I did.
We all did.
Yeah.
Sorry, Randy.
So, can I have a little early? I'm not sure what I want to talk about tonight. I'll go later. All right.
Wow, this is not a discussion item, but I want to give all the mothers a happy Mother's Day wish.
Nice. Thank you. Nice. That it?
That's it.
Thank you.
All right.
Trying to keep it under Randy's 30 minutes.
I went and looked at the roundabout this morning. It's
Me too.
coming along, looking good. The roundabout. Tried to go look at it, I couldn't get close enough. They're hoping to put down the first lift of asphalt Wednesday of this week if weather's hold out.
Post from somebody that said, I can't wait till it's done so I can start complaining about it.
Totally said that. I mean, that started a long time ago, so I don't know what they're waiting for. Yeah.
I talked to Sheriff Miller tonight, that's ice inmate's gone, so, they're no longer having any ice as we speak. There was only 10, I think, when we voted on it. So I know we had the 120 days, however, ICE went ahead and took them all.
So they terminated the contract too?
Well, we have 120 days
That
still,
was 30
but
days ago, so 30
but
years.
they don't have any current ICE as we speak.
We're getting rid of medical expenses and we're getting rid of the expenses.
Majority of them, yes. Mhm.
I've seen some folks have been given their notice that their job is terminated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hate to hear that, but that's the way it's gotta be.
Yeah.
Nothing for me.
That's it.
All right. Back to you, Chuck.
Well, you know, we had a little discussion about impact fees last week, and, you know, looking at impact fees, you know, I'm in favor of them, you're against them, but we don't know what we're talking about, and I would like to see if we can get a head nod to have them put out an RFP to find out what an impact fee for, and I just want it for parks, libraries, and,
I looked at that, Chuck, too, but the study itself costs so much.
that's what I said.
It's like $30,000 to even justify it, and you're not even gonna collect that much money.
And that's why I said put out an RFP, because that's what I want to see. How much is it going to cost? Because at $30,000 to $40,000, $50,000, it's not worth it.
No, it's not.
Okay, but if it's only $5,000 or $10,000, then it might be worth it. And I just
Can they staff just call somebody and ask them instead of doing an RFP?
You know, the company that we're using, Leftillis, I'm not sure I think they do impact fees as well. But it's along the same, setting up the rules for the impact fees and access fees are governed by the same rule of law in the state of Florida, the same statute. And, but their study was relatively high, and to really get down into an in-depth study, you're going to spend that $25,000, $30,000, because ours had to have been as well. But
Let me ask you something. You said something before, Ralph, that we haven't even spent the money from the impact fees we collected
I
last.
think we still have some. I don't know.
Probably in corrections.
we got no corrections. We finished out corrections, and I think we have a little left over we got a little bit in library and roads, and roads is a couple $100, and library is like
Okay, well, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, the building that we just built finished out corrections, which we had a hard time figuring that one
have
out.
trouble using library, because, you know, we've got population increase.
Well, the problem is when we needed to do the expansion, our population was not growing. We did it during the slow period, and now if it was now, we could use a bigger percentage of that dollar.
But it has to go to increase capacity, which is hard to do if you have a...
That's right, and at the time, we were sitting stagnant, so
You put an addition on the building, now you could justify.
now I can justify using the money.
Finance the
Can't you
impact
improve the
fee.
collection and use that to improve the collection? So
Is that?
the collection,
Yeah.
that gives, that's why I say it's so simple to spend, is because all you have to do is expand the collection and all of this,
Well, but we also have to match that as well.
And believe it or not, I brought up that same issue, but once I looked at what it was gonna cost, it just wasn't...
Well, that's what I say, I got a high number too, and that's why I wanted to see if we put it out as a request, maybe somebody will come in with a number that we can afford, you know, that is reasonable.
Well, and because you want a defensible number, and that's what...
Yeah, I know, you gotta take it to court.
That's
like,
right.
You know,
That's what I know, and that's why I say, but we need to have a study, and my only request is to ask somebody to tell us how much the study's gonna cost.
I mean, we can't just, again,
I would
Study
look out.
on impact fees, correct?
Huh?
I mean, isn't that all collaborative? Isn't there a lot of things that go into the equation?
You can only do it, you can do it for just the items you're gonna charge it on.
yes,
Okay,
correct.
so we're just gonna charge it on libraries and recreation, okay? So that's the two things that we need to, have the study on, okay, to see how much it's gonna cost to do that. And to me, that's, we don't have the money to expand our recreation park. We've got a $12 million bill coming if we ever build a northern park, and,
Can I suggest this? Why don't you bring back an agenda item so that we can get good, clear direction and board agreement on if we are to go for this, what we're gonna go out for, and is it somebody may want roads and included in there or whatever. I'm just saying, make sure that agenda item spells it out, and that gives my staff, what they need to, clear direction as to what to do, and make sure the board is okay.
Good idea.
As a whole.
You can't expand I know you said Rex and library, you can't expand it for, what impact fees can be used for though, can't you?
Oh, you can.
well, there's all sorts of things.
Let me,
The question is what, we have an access fee, we have other fees that we can consider impact fees. We don't have anything that really covers parks, recreation, and the libraries.
well, I'm curious, other than
1 cent sales tax.
what was the purpose of doing away with impact fees before when we had them? I know it was before me, I mean, it's been years, was there a reason?
The reason they gave at the time was to promote growth.
At the time, the economy was shrinking.
Right.
It was just past the mortgage meltdown.
Some people have-
Tax bases were shrinking. There wasn't a lot of building going on.
Some people have qualms with the theory in general. I mean, I ran the numbers on it, it's been years ago, and what I came up with was the 1 cent sales tax that new residents pay offsets their growth, their impact.
I don't think so.
I'm not saying I'm not adverse to what you're talking about, but I understand that it'll basically be a tax.
Might not be a bad idea to get a copy of the last study that was done, just to see. The thing that I had a problem with is in my opinion, the purpose of that study was how much can we justify charging? Okay, my point, I wanna look at it, say if we're gonna do it for libraries, look at it as what is the average citizen in this county paying, divided up by the number of people, or the number of households, however we want to divide it up, and say, what is the average person paying for library services? Now, if that turns out to be X amount of dollars, now say, well, what should we charge the new homes that's being here? They should pay the same amount as everybody else is paying, in my opinion, that they're not. They're
If
going
they're
to pay.
paying forward, that's one thing. What the question here is how much has the current citizen invested in building the system, and that this person is moving in and taking advantage of the investment of previous,
I understand your point, but you don't go to a restaurant for the first time and the restaurant owner say, you didn't pay for the air conditioning, the tables that's here, so we're going to charge you 5% more than everybody else. Everybody pays the same. It's the fair way to do it. We all come into the system at some point in our lives and benefit from what's here. So I don't see how we can say, well, you paid for 20 years, so you're done. You just got here. You got the same, when you call an ambulance, fire, use of roads, library, you got the same access to services as everybody else that's here. I want to find a way to make it fair, and I've never found a way to make impact fees fair.
well, it's simply how much the people that are here have already invested. When I moved here, I spent almost $2,000 on impact fees. Okay, so that's not, and a whole segment of our population did that when they moved in.
I understand.
So it's not as though that, people haven't paid impact fees. Those impact fees went into building these facilities we have, and now we are growing so fast, we're outgrowing our facilities, and we don't get enough money from sales tax to pay for it.
You're going to also, under that theory, you're going to be charging impact fees to 20-year-old newlywed couples who've lived here their entire lives. My father got divorced from my stepmother, moved directly across the street. You could hit the house with a baseball from her house on land they already owned. They didn't add any more cars, have any more children, have any more impact in the community, but he paid impact fees for that second home.
He didn't move far enough away from his ex-wife either.
So, I mean, there's all kind of ways that you can slice it.
This is about how do we fund building the improvements our community needs for into the future. And this is one method to do that. Otherwise, you have to tax the heck out of your current citizens.
Since we're not even talking about impact fees, we're talking about an RFP to look at how much one would cost.
That's all I'm,
Can the staff just call somebody and ask them?
We'll find out. We'll get that cost out.
And their qualifications that they've done this.
And then we'll have a whole discussion.
It costs so much to do an impact.
Because it has to be defensible in court, so it's gotta be very,
There's a lot of work, yeah.
now, the last one I reviewed, I mean, like Parks and Rec, for example, we'll add up how many acres of land we have in the park. Here's how many acres of land, here's how many people live in the county, divide this by that, boom, that's how they come up with some impact fee. It's based on real assets. So, you can do it a lot, as well.
Well, you also could target it, meaning if you said, for recreation, you wanted to have it for, that it was gonna pay a portion of the new rec park. And you could target it and say, okay, new rec park's $12 million. It'll pay for half of that, so start putting that to the side, so we could target things like that.
Justify that in court, though. I think there's a methodology they have to.
But anyway, there's a way in the library, we need a new library. How do we start funding that?
And if I remember correctly, the last one, they came out with a number, and we adopted like 25% of that number. I mean, it was something way less than what they said could be justified.
Sensible number they came up with.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what you're gonna see with the upcoming studies, you're gonna see a range.
What year was the old study?
2007, right? Probably about, yeah. 'Cause I think it went away in 2010, somewhere around
When I
there.
first came in, it was 2011.
Yeah.
I know it's been bought from the board twice.
I think so, I remember that.
Before you.
I brought it up, the exact same thing, Parks and Rec, in the library, and I quickly realized the votes weren't there, so I dropped it.
If we've got that study, it wouldn't be a bad idea to review that, just so you can see the
I
methodology
want to
of
see
it.
it from before.
It just does not answer the question of, does this new home, are they paying their fair share or more than their fair share? It just doesn't answer that. And that's where I get hung up, because I've done the math, and I did this before I ever got elected. This is the single issue that got me in this room the very first time as a private citizen, is impact fees. And I did the math, I published it on a website, and, some people said, oh, that's elementary math, but nobody found any errors in it. Nobody found any problems in it. And it's clear that not only are the new homes paying more, but they're going to pay exponentially more. So as everyone grows, this is existing people, the new homes are going to grow at a faster rate, throughout time. That's where I get stuck.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, stand adjourned.
Stop talking for a second.
Thank you.
We're under 45 minutes. Oh, yeah.